Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. So today my guest is Marlene Greenlaw, and she is not only a family business of one, but two family businesses. We've got Bucksport, Fort Knox, KOA, and Keepsakes. So welcome, Marlene.
Thank you for having me.
This is an interesting story. So let's really start at the beginning. So you have a campground. So tell me a little bit how you got into the campground business, how you and your husband got involved in that, and then we'll talk about how the second business evolved.
When we started the campground, I had been to the campground. I was selling Pampered Chef. So I went and did a Pampered Chef demonstration, and the owner of the campground was there. And I said, "You have such a beautiful campground." And she said, "Thank you." And I said, "My husband and I have always wanted to own a campground." So she said, "You can own this one." So needless to say, it took us 6 months, 2 banks, my husband losing his job in the mill shut down 2 days before we were supposed to close on the campground. And they waylaid us for 2 more weeks until we could prove ourselves and, obtain our financing a little bit better. So anyway, we were able to purchase the campground. My husband and I and our youngest 2 daughters lived on the park. Our oldest daughter was off at college. Our other 2 children were busy with their own lives, so didn't spend a lot of time at the campground. Our youngest daughter, Lauren, did help when she could because she was involved in sports, had her own job, whatever. But it was hard. It was a labor of love at first. My husband had lost his job and needed to go back out into the workforce. So he drove 45 minutes a day one way to go to work, and I ran the campground. He would come home, and on his days off, he would do all of the heavy lifting and help out when he could. That went on for, I was there, I think, 10 years. And we had decided it was getting time for us to maybe start thinking about what we were going to do with our retirement life. And we had looked at a couple other inns and that type of thing. And I had a small quilt shop in the campground store. I had done retreats for 5 years. We did 3 a summer, and we had a lot of days where campers would come in and just sew and have fun.
Oh, fun.
We sold material and notions, and it was small, but it was fun. And then the building came up that we are now currently in with Keepsakes for sale. And I don't know how I did it, but I talked my husband into letting me start this new venture. It took us about 2.5 months to be able to acquire the building. We signed on May 3rd of not this year, but last year. And on May 10th, I was open. When we came in, the only thing that was in here was the fudge equipment. That's all we purchased. So my son-in-laws, my daughters, campers loaded about 4 truckloads and trailers and brought over everything I had purchased for the store that was in the campground store waiting to be moved over. So we did all of that, and I worked tirelessly for probably 15 hours a day from the 3rd until the 10th on my opening day. And that's
a quick turnaround.
Yes, it was. Of course, there wasn't as much in here as there is now. And when we started as a gift shop / quilt store. So the quilt store was a lot less of the building space. We are 5,500 square feet. It was probably 1,200 square feet. Now the quilt shop takes up all of the space with probably 400 feet for gifts. We do have our fudge counter, but that does take up small area. You can make fudge and do all of that in a very small area.
Interesting. So, is your husband now involved still with the campground and with the quilting store at all?
With the campground, he runs it. The campground primarily. I'm not that involved with the campground. I guess you call me a cruise director. I go over on the weekends and we
Mhm.
play games and I entertain with my husband in our rec hall. But the day-to-day operations is done by my husband and our son-in-law, Seth.
Mm,
Uh,
okay.
with the quilt shop, David last winter, because he's semi-retired in the wintertime. So last winter, he went to school to be able to service sewing machines. And he did it over a course of 12 weeks, 2 to 3 days a week.
Hmm.
And now he services all of our sewing machines and vacuum cleaners because we sell vacuum cleaners here too. And yeah, that's who runs the store as a
Hmm.
management team would be David and Seth at the campground, and
Hmm.
then me here with David taking care of mostly our service department.
Now, you have three daughters, each
Yes.
in very different stages and career paths. So, how are they involved in the family business, or where do they see their future involved in either the campground or the quilt store?
Well, when Seth and Megan came to us, Megan is our middle daughter, they said that they were very interested in taking over the campground when we were ready to retire. They didn't want us to sell it. They wanted to, to be able to purchase it themselves. And we were kind of shocked, but excited. My son-in-law quit his job as a vice principal and started taking care of their children on a full-time basis so that he could help run the campground. Um, and we were, like I said, shocked. So weren't my other daughters. And at first it was a little bit of, wait a minute, that we might want to do this. So, it was a decision that they were there. I think they're all very capable, but Seth and Megan took the initiative to to do it. And I think they're in a better place where they can do it. Our oldest daughter, Megan, by the way, is a charge nurse at the local hospital and going back to school for a pediatric nurse practitioner.
That's
Seth
kind of
has
handy to have at a campground.
Oh yeah. And Seth has quite a few jobs, being dad, full-time dad and, caretaker to the children and then helping my husband with the campground. And David's been able to back up quite a bit from the campground and be able to spend more time over here with me at the shop because it's just me
Hmm.
90% of the time. My mom does help out. She's here almost every day. If she's not here, she's at the campground because my mom is our cleaning staff along with David and Seth. But she comes over here and I'd say she's my cruise director here. She talks to customers and helps out when she can. Our oldest daughter is a guidance counselor. I think they call them something else now, but she's a guidance counselor at a school. She just got married and is pregnant with our fourth grandchild. So Bethany has no interest in sewing, doesn't even know what a sewing machine can do. Um, but she's a lot of fun when she comes over here and works. She has this saying, people will say, Bethany, any discounts today? And she'll say, no, you're padding my inheritance. There's no discounts today. So Bethany helps out, even though she has no idea what sewing is. She can cut fabric now,
Mhm.
thankfully, and she does help out a lot at the campground. The summer before last, and for 2 summers before that, she basically ran our takeout at the campground. This year we didn't have it running because it wasn't profitable and it's getting harder with less involvement from, outside help. So we did close the campground the snack shack this summer, which made it easier for David and I to concentrate here on the keepsakes. And our daughter Lauren, who is the youngest daughter, is married to a merchant marine, so he's gone at least 75% of the year. And before she had our grandson, she spent a lot of time here helping out. Now she does all of my newsletters for me, which
Mhm.
helps out. And she does a lot of posts. She does come over and help when she can, but like I said, he's an active 1 year old, so it's a little difficult. But she does do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff to help out.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, they all help in different ways. And Lauren, it's easier for Lauren to work at the campground because Sonny can be behind the counter in his playpen and she can
Mhm.
wait on customers and answer the phone. Here in the quilt shop, it's a little bit harder with pins and needles and sharp objects. And, it's not the ideal place for a 1 year old.
And you know what? That's I've heard that story a few times from family businesses that the kids are in playpens in the business.
Yeah.
So, have you actually sat down and had the conversation with your family and had a family meeting about the future and what the legacy, what you want and what they want? Have you sat down and talked about that?
We have, obviously Lauren and Matthew, I'm hoping might eventually come over and take over the store. Matthew loves his job. He keeps moving up in rank, so he's doing very well. But I do believe that this would be ideal for him. Matthew likes to take things apart. He's an engineer and put them back together. So, what better place to take things apart and put them back together than a sewing machine repair shop? And Lauren is my only daughter out of all of them that can sew.
Mhm.
Matthew
Mhm.
and Lauren do a little bit of my embroidering. Also, we have a 6 needle and a 10 needle, and they have a 1 needle embroidery machine at home. So they do some of our work for us to help out.
Mhm.
Sometimes it gets overwhelming with everything going on. So, uh, yes, that I think they're going to be very involved. If Chad and Bethany came to us and said, we want to look at doing this business, we would certainly um, help them try to get into whatever they might be interested
Mhm.
in doing.
Mhm.
Uh, in 2020, I don't know what we were thinking. We opened the snack shack at our campground, and we also purchased a campground in Holton, Maine, with my sister and her husband. Um, we brought them in to help them establish themselves and get themselves going. They were the muscle, and we were the money. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it made it easier for them. And then they were able to buy us out 2 years ago, which was great for them. And that was the overall goal. So
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that's something that we would be able to do with my daughter Bethany and Chad if they found something that they were interested in. But for now, they're just freshly married and a baby on the way, and
Mhm. Mhm.
they're not there yet. But that doesn't mean they
No.
won't be.
Well, and it's also, part of the role of the family to talk about what the opportunities are. So they might not be interested in, you know, sewing, but maybe the business side or expansion, or how do you take that shop if it's so successful and then franchise it, or, open another location. Because yes, it's great to have skill, but there's also good to have the business side, and having those conversations with the family makes it a little easier as opposed to, well, you get this and you get that, right? Because you're looking at the whole family enterprise. And
Right.
because you're running two family businesses that are so completely different, a campground and a quilting shop, um, there's opportunities there from, like you said, another business that becomes part of the whole umbrella, as
Mhm.
opposed to more campgrounds or more quilting shops. So because you work with your husband every day and you're married, how do you start to divide the roles, both personally and business wise?
Well, I think when we first started, that was quite the challenge. Um, my husband was going through a lot in his career because, we had taken on a huge mortgage 2 weeks after he had lost the only
Mm-hmm.
income we had. I did do odd jobs throughout, raising our children. I was a photographer. I worked for a photography studio, but I worked mother's hours and only had to work 3 to 4 months a year. To pay for Christmas, I guess is what we did. But it was a lot different when everything left, all the money left. And then we were trying to sustain a business that we closed October 17th on the campground. And there's no money coming in from October to May.
That
So
wasn't a good time to be buying a
no,
campground.
we had a huge mortgage, and we wondered every day, how are we going to pay this mortgage? So there was a lot of stress. When the campground first opened back up, David was doing two jobs. He was working outside the home and traveling, and I was there. That was scary,
Mhm.
but we did
Did
it.
the
We got
family
through.
know? Did the family, were the girls, did they understand how stressful it was for you guys?
I think so, especially the older two. They were Bethany was off in college, Megan was in high school. I think they understood that, things were tight and things had changed. They really understood when our youngest daughter went to apply for college and filled out her FAFSA. It was quite a difference from the older two filling it out because we were both working and,
Mm-hmm.
it was very busy and we were, had money. And then when Lauren went and filled out her FAFSA, that was a totally different story.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
Lauren got a lot more help than the other two daughters. But yes, I think they understood that money was tight. Things were different from what they were used to. But that's when they all seemed to help more and
I was
be,
going to say, did that sort
yeah,
of, everybody sort of banded together to help out in any way they could?
yes. My mom moved on to Park. David and I moved out of the home that we had at the campground and moved into a camper because we wanted to be more like our campers and, interact with them more. But it also was able to bring another Megan, when she had gone off, she moved back in. Bethany came home for the summer. So they were all there helping out when they could.
Hmm.
So yes, I think they were very helpful in keeping our family unit as a family and, not tearing apart and yelling and screaming. And
Hmm.
so, yes, it was very beneficial to have them home. It was a lot different though when David and I started working together and being together 24/7. That
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
quite an adjustment.
So, what has the biggest challenge been then with working beside each other 24/7?
Um, Differences of opinions. We have two businesses, and I ran the day to day at the campground for 10 years. So when David was, having to take it over, I think he realized what I had to do at the campground, because now he was doing all the things he had to do, plus
Less,
my
yeah.
job. Yeah. So that was hard at first, but he got through it. And don't tell him I said this, but I think sometimes he handles it better than I did. I don't think people tend to push around a man as much as they do a woman.
Mhm.
So sometimes, when you're at a campground, I was trying to deal with electrical issues, plumbing issues, those type of things. And I heard from many male guests, can you please get me somebody who knows what they're talking about?
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
that's me,
Yeah.
you know? So probably the same would be said here at the quilt shop. Uh, it hasn't happened, but people will look at David and say, is Marlene here to cut the fabric?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. In the
uh,
reverse sense. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, but the
Absolutely.
women here love David. They tease him. They say he's their quilt shop boyfriend. So yeah, I think the women really enjoy having David here, and he enjoys, teasing with them and
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
uh, all of that. So it's a good balance having him here and helping me. I much prefer him being here than at the campground, so I'm able to get more done when he works with me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, as we wrap up, I like to end with sort of three pieces of advice. And so, what would the three pieces of advice you would give to other families thinking about mixing business and family life?
Well, running a business isn't easy. There's lots of obstacles, just like your family life. Never give up, never give in, and remember why you're there. Remember how you got there. Your family is everything, and without them, you couldn't do what you do.
Yeah, that is so true. You know what? I really, really appreciate you coming on today. you really do have quite a combination of family and business and completely different elements. And it's so nice to see that all three of your girls are helping out when they can, and that you've got two sort of interested in the future, and who knows what the third one will bring. So anyway, thank you, Marlene, for joining us today. I really appreciated you stopping by.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciated being a guest.
If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find BlueRoots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.